Hello, everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci of NLL Lacrosse Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment, a good one, please. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me as usual, our co-host Gary Groob and our guest, Chris Flynn, former Philadelphia wing of the National Lacrosse League. Chris, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me, boys. I've been looking forward to this.
You look great, I got to tell you.
It's probably, I've been getting some Botox here and there. My lips are a little big.
This is Chris over here. He's on my phone.
Smooth, man. Absolutely smooth.
Wonderful technology, and please, Chris said, sorry guys, Chris, it's not you, it's the technology. And you know what? We appreciate your patience and your willingness to put up with the trouble and actually stick around and do this. So let me start by saying that. Thank you so much for being here, and sorry about the difficulties we're having connecting.
All good, my friend.
Okay, good. So let's start with where we always start with. Doesn't matter who's on the show, we always ask them, why lacrosse, when and how?
Why lacrosse? I was the youngest of five. I think I was a whoops baby, and lacrosse was coming on. I didn't start till the sixth grade. I was in a parochial school. I played football. I looked at I played basketball. I wrestled. I did some other things, and my sister's boyfriend, who she married, was playing high school lacrosse for Springfield in Delaware County, PA, and he brought me home a stick, and I just started playing with it. I liked it, and my mom went out and got me a stick, and I showed up to the field the first day, and everybody laughed at me because it was a girl's stick.
So how long did it take you to wear that idea down?
Well, they stuck me in goal for my first 2 years. So I basically, I went with the flow and enjoyed it, and just, playing football and playing lacrosse, similar type sports. It was just fun. The guys are really good. That's the one thing about lacrosse, that it's a true brotherhood, and everybody, you don't have to meet everybody in the sport, but everybody pretty much is just the same, and it's great.
It's kind of, lacrosse is kind of different than most other sports, in my opinion. Now you can correct me if I'm wrong. There's a progression in most sports. You're a little kid, you outgrow those people, you go into high school, you outgrow those people, you go into junior or some level of top amateur play, and you grow out of those people. Then you join a team, and you're with that team, and then you get traded, you go to another team, you grow out of that. With lacrosse, people stay in contact with the people they first started playing, because there's so many crossovers, so many times where there are so many changes within a season, within a year, so that, you never really leave anybody, do you?
No, you don't. We had a gathering. I don't know whether you guys know, there was Scott Gabrielson's father, known as Big Gabe, who would lead all the Wings cheers, passed away.
Yeah.
About a month ago. So I'll tell you what, there was a lot of fans there at the funeral, and there were a ton of players from that time period. There were coaches, there were general managers, there were the doctors that helped us out. So, and the trainers. So, it's more than just the players. It's everybody on the periphery as well.
It's a group that stays together, very loyal to each other, and it's amazing to me how, you go. I guess the point I was trying to make is, you're a teammate, then you're on opposite sides of the line, and then you're a teammate again, and then you're opposite sides of the line again. There's always these transitions that need to be made when you're a lacrosse player, more, I think, than any other sport.
I think you're right, and the competitiveness comes out during the games, but as soon as the game's over, you're back, having a couple beverages together.
How much of that is the fact that you don't become multimillionaires playing lacrosse?
Everybody, growing up and playing lacrosse, and luckily I got to play in the NLL. It was a part-time job, and you didn't expect to get paid a whole lot. So, you made do with what you had, and you had a lot of fun. And the guys all had regular jobs, and you traveled 2 or 3 nights a week, and an hour and a half away, and you practiced for 4 or 5, 6 months out of the year, and then you came home, you woke up, and you went to your job. But fans were great. They, you felt like a real star, and they made you feel good about yourself. So it was worth it.
Go ahead, Gary.
All right. Well, I want to bring us back a little bit further to the Penn University days, where you were doing both football and lacrosse, and excelling at both. Football Rookie of the Year, lacrosse Player of the Year. Not really much time to have any of the ambiance of the university between academics and 2 different sports at full bore. Eh?
The question again is how hard was it, or how'd you make?
Yeah. How difficult was it to try
and athletics?
Academics?
Yeah, you know what it was. You were always busy. You didn't have any downtime, which meant you woke up, you went to your classes, you went to the trainer's table, you got taped, you went out to practice. Practice was over, you ate, and then you studied.
Right.
And you were, all your time was taken up. You were taught to manage your time. And, what I saw a lot of guys kind of fall by the wayside, even non-athletes, is that they had too much time on their hands. And, they started doing other things that took up their time that weren't, meaningful.
Right. Now, what was it like to play under Tony Seaman? He's been a former guest of ours. He was a great guest, very interesting. But, long lineage of championships. To play 4 years under Tony.
I have the pleasure of having a lot of very good coaches. And I can tell you that Tony was the best. Mm-hmm. Just because he coached up really well, but he was also a friend. Right. He knew how to get the best out of everybody. He was always joking. You would want to come down to his office and watch film, and he would bust your chops on everything from, if your girlfriend broke up with you, to you not picking up a ground ball. But he just got the most out of every guy that ever played for him. Right.
Well, he also gave you the greatest of compliments, saying the one thing that Chris Flynn had that nobody he ever coached had was as big as was his heart, which says a lot about your character.
Oh, that's nice. Tony and I, he did me some favors later on in life, and, I'll always remember that. It was just a lot of it's just what's ingrained in you from your little, and, it's sort of in your DNA, and I just love to compete, and luckily I didn't get hurt, and I had really good coaches and really good teammates around me to help me be the best I could. And I loved it. I really did. Nothing else I would have rather done. And I'm sitting on 2 artificial hips from 11 years ago, and, no regrets.
Right. Now, in 1988, it was the NCAA tournament. You made it to the semifinals, and you went against the Syracuse team, losing a heartbreaker 11-10, but everybody said that was the finals. Playing against the Gates. That was the famous Gary Gate air gate goal. What was it like in that atmosphere during those times?
Going up there and playing in the Carrier Dome, it was a little intimidating, but we came out. We had played them a few times before in our college career, and we weren't afraid. We were a senior-driven class. We had a great goalie, John Canaris. He played his butt off that game and that whole year. Gary and Paul are special players. And, they, in my opinion, are the best players that ever walked the earth. I think Gary played both offense and defense. as well as you can. Paul was more of an offensive player. Obviously could play defense, but, you know, just playing up there against Roy Simmons, and Desco was the assistant, and Bill Durgel was facing off. And, you know, we weren't scared when we went up there. You know, I turned the game off with 4 seconds to go because at some point only about 4 seconds to go. So it's hard to watch the ending.
Sure. But you as a face-off guy almost was like you were doing it as a football guy because, you know, the strong survive and away you went, right?
Yeah. You know, Bill Durgel was a tough competitor, good guy. And, you know, I don't know who got the better of who that day, but, you know, I like staying on the field. I like taking, you know, being in the mix. I wasn't a guy that I can't even spell Fogo. You know, I hate the term.
Exactly.
So
the old school was you stayed on and you played, right?
Say that again?
The old school was you stayed on and you played, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. You know, you got to run. And even when playing for the Wings, it wasn't offense defense for the first 4 or 5 years. It was just, you know, run 5 out, you play offense, turn the ball over, you go back and play defense, and then you run off and get a whole new 5 in. It wasn't,
right.
You weren't nothing for just offensive guys.
Yeah, it wasn't a transition game per se.
Yeah, you know what? Most of our team in the early years were American guys, and we were used to playing offense and defense, and it was tough to make the team if you were an attackman on our team because,
right.
You know, you got the crud beat out of you. And, you know, there were a lot of good attackmen that just couldn't play. A guy like Billy Miller, he did really well. He could play both ends. But, you know, when it started expanding and bringing in the Canadian lacrosse players who are box players, you know, they were more specialized. Mm-hmm. So they were such good offensive players and ball handlers that, you know, they were just superb to a lot of the Americans. And what happened was a lot of guys, you know, we had to go back on defense. You know, we had to let the Canadians take over for offense.
Right.
But that's because of the field lacrosse background, right?
Yeah, I would say so. You know, they grew up playing box their whole life. They played with one hand, and you know, but they could shoot behind the back, and it didn't matter that they were only one hand. And listen, if they were big like Paul and Gary and some of the other guys were 6'2", 210, 220, you know, that's pretty normal now. That wasn't that normal back then.
Yeah,
right?
and when you're used to playing in a closet, if you will, you know, you get good at it. It's how you play, right? It's an advantage in box lacrosse.
Yeah. You know, our style of play, we had 3 or 4 championship games against, you know, there was basically U.S. guys against the Canadian guys when we would play Buffalo with Tavares and Cordingley and Kilgores and all those guys.
Right.
You know, they were Canadians playing with one hand, and, you know, we were mucking it up. We were the grinders just trying to get up and down, play offense and defense, and they won some and we won some. So,
right.
What was that like to play with 2 different styles? Was it something that you realized when you were playing that game, or is it something looking back that you marvel at the fact that there was such a delineation, such a difference?
You know, I don't think we drilled down that much on it. A little bit, but when you're playing, you're just used to playing, you know, your right hand, you play on the right-hand side of the field, you know, for your right-handed shot. And you match up against the left who's on the other side on defense. And, you know, listen, it's all about shooting, good goaltending, but, you know, myself and Gage and all the other guys, you know, it's about ground balls and playing really good defense and being unselfish and moving the ball. And, you know, there was a lot of hits from behind. There was a lot from up in the head. There were a lot of cross checks from behind into the boards, and you get your head crunched. And, you know, they didn't call it as much back then. They really didn't call it too, you know. So, you know, I always talk about, you know, when we played against some of the Canadians, they did something smart. They would get in your head when you didn't have the ball. They wanted you thinking about then rather than playing lacrosse. Like, they give you a cheap shot and you learn how to give cheap shots back. But their thing was, hey, if we got you thinking about everything else but lacrosse, then chances are we're going to win.
Right. So how was the involvement with the Wings originally? You're a field player. You're coming out of college. How did this union happen that all of a sudden you're trying out for a box lacrosse team?
Well, I think as a midfielder, it was a little bit easier just because I played offense and defense. And a lot of us that were playing had football backgrounds. The stick skills didn't have to be that superb, and it was easier back then. The guys nowadays are so fine tuned. They've been playing such a long time. Their skill sets are just so darn good. For us, it was just roll up your sleeves, put your sneakers on, and throw the ball out there. And it wasn't as finesse as it is as it is now. And the sticks and equipment, ball doesn't come out of your stick too often these days.
So you get on with the Wings. Now they had some pretty stacked teams. We had Jake Berge on, and he's telling some of the stories in practice. Him and Steve Govett going at it, and a few other things, just to make sure they made the lineup when it was posted, because that was weekly, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you had guys. We probably had about 20 guys on the team, and 16 or 17 dressed, and I'd say the practice was just as tough as the game.
Right.
Because you had guys like Gabby Rowe comes to mind, who's the face-off guy, Paul O'Grady, very good player, and they wanted to play as much as anybody, and the way that they showed it was in practice. And you left practice, with a couple bags of ice, and you were bleeding a lot. So, but you just knew that was part of it.
Right. Now you make the team and you get on the floor. What's your feeling? You get in front of the Spectrum fans and they're on top of you. I remember the old Spectrum very well, and they're literally on top of you. 12, 14, 15,000 fans, and here you are, and it's like the energy must have been incredible.
Yeah, the fans really embraced us. We had a true following. They were able to. The Spectrum was able to piggyback off a lot of the season ticket holders for the Flyers. Okay, so we got Flyers fans who love the Broad Street Bullies, and that mentality was city. It was lunch pail, go to work, blue collar, and they really appreciated how hard we worked, and the fact that we would see them after the games and we would hang with them, and we would invite them places, and we would sit there and talk to them. We'd have guest bartender nights. We developed a really good rapport with those fans, and that led them to come out, support us, because, they felt like they were our friends, which they were, and we were in the community, and, you don't go to, what was it called? It was called Legends in the Holiday Inn, right, after all the games, where we would go, and we would get, we get paid $100, right, a game. Right. We all wanted the beer tickets. We each got 3 beer tickets after the game. Where's my beer ticket? I don't care about my check. Give me my 3 beer tickets. Any of you guys leaving early? I'm going home? Give me your beer ticket. We'd see the fans there. The beer tickets are more important than your check. Right. So,
well, you could drink enough beer for a whole payday. If you're not careful. Hey, listen, I've been to a few of those things. They're a lot of fun. It's something that truly anybody who goes to a lacrosse match, it really are a game. You really have to be a part of a post game. The post games are always that much fun, and being with the diehard fans mixed in with the players, and watching the interaction. It's amazing, the interaction, and how casually the players interact with the fans, and how the fans are very respectful of the players. I'm sure you can attest to that too, where they gave you a little bit of space when you needed it, but they're always ready, willing, and able to interact.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, every once in a while, the team has some of the alumni back, and we're at one of the games early, and we're signing autographs. And I tell you what, there must have been 200 people there that I signed autographs. There was 10, 15 other alumni there that we were signing autograph shirts. They had old jerseys, and I saw 3 of my jerseys there. I mean, these guys they were true fans.
I can tell that you're very grateful for their attitude. It really, it shows the appreciation you have for being, a player, and specifically in Philadelphia.
Yeah, wouldn't change it. It was a very important time in my life. I met my wife in my last year or so, and she got to see us come down and we played Baltimore down in Baltimore for a championship on a Tuesday night, and we won. And she took the bus home with us. I mean, we were boyfriend and girlfriend then. But it was just, we had a great following, and I can't tell you, it's the best years of my life.
Now let's compare the game back then when you were playing in the 90s to what we have now. A lot of guys, including Darius Kilgore, have been on the show. We always talk how it's like the Wild West compared to where it is now. You had mentioned it, things that you were getting cross-checked or whatever. Things that would be almost suspension now would barely be a loss of possession back then. So you really had to be tough to play the game back then.
Yeah, you absolutely did. They're trying to grow the sport at that time, and they're trying to get more fans interested. And, a lot of fans like the brutality of the sport. And right now, concussions are much bigger. People are aware of those. It's not like back then you could, get what do they call it? You
get your bell rung.
Yeah, you get your bell rung, right?
Yeah.
And, now your bell rung, you're sitting out, you're going into protocol, and you get a couple, people are going to stay away from you. Back then, you pretty much played out the rest of the game, and, you didn't really see anybody. And, luckily so far everybody's pretty good with their health, but Darius is right. It was the Wild West, and you would get hit from behind. And, I remember Ted Downey.
Mm-hmm.
He was playing for Detroit, and the year before, he got me he got me to something that I didn't see coming. I didn't forget that.
Right.
The next year, he did something, to one of my buddies, and I waited till he turned around. There's 14,000 fans at the Spectrum. I looked around to see if there was any referees in back of me, and I came down on the back of his head so hard with my stick, I bent it. Peter Park saw it. Dowling goes down. Peter Park comes up, and Peter Park is 6'6".
Mm-hmm.
He crushes me from behind. Then you have Brian Volker come in, get him off of me. It's everybody's left the all the guys are out matching up. That game got canceled in the third quarter.
Right.
We never played out the second half of the third quarter. We never played the fourth quarter because the refs couldn't handle it. I mean,
right.
That never happened.
No, not in this game now. No, they don't do it at all now. They hardly have contact, really. But again, a lot of it has to do with the development you talked about. With these guys have been doing it since they were 2-3 years old, and stick skills are a lot different now than back then. The whole setup of the league now, I think, is different. When we're looking at where the league is now with TV contracts and things, one of the things that you had mentioned long ago was the one thing hard to take it as professional is because it's not mainstream, it's not on TV. It needs more. Do you think we're on that path now to getting to where it should be taken as like the Big Four?
You know, I'm going to be, you know, honest. You know, I think it's going to be hard to get in with the Big Four. It's just you don't have that many people playing it around the country. You still don't have people playing it in the South. You got to compete with baseball. I could be wrong. You know, you're getting these TV contracts. You know, people want to play in the summer and have leagues. I don't think that's really a good idea. Just because people go to the beach, people go on vacation, and you know, the fact is, you're going to compete with ice hockey and you're going to compete with basketball. And there's only so much in entertainment dollars a family's going to pay, right?
Right.
So you got all these sports. You got the circus coming in. You got, you know, ice skating, volleys, whatever. There's so many things out there competing for that entertainment dollar. And, you know, luckily, you know, the Comcast of the world, they're looking for content. You know, they're looking to keep the lights on at Wells Fargo Stadium at the rink, you know, as much as they can. So they'll play 2 or 3 different games as long as, you know, you have a Flyers game and then a Wings game at night.
Right.
So that's what they have going for them. But, you know, there comes a time where, you know, families only have a certain amount of money they can spend on entertainment.
Well, that's why the quality of entertainment has to be there.
Yeah. You know, it's sometimes tough to follow the ball on the screen. It's moving so quick. You know, so trying to gain those new viewers, you know, may not be as easy. But, you know, I leave that to the smart people. I just enjoy watching.
Well, here, let me take care of that for you. Kidding. I'm looking for smart people too. One thing's for sure, though, you know, with the game, and as you said, you know, the physical play is very attractive for a lot of fans. It's something that really attracts them. And when you have a situation where some of that play is being questioned, and in fact, it's determined that it's not good literally for the health of the game, so it gets kind of deleted a little bit, or at least trimmed back. You got to find another way to get people interested, right?
Yeah, and that's scoring, you know, and, you know, obviously football, whatever sport, basketball, you know, people want to see scoring. So, you know, I don't know where the NLL ranked this year as far as overall scoring, but, you know, stuff where guys score behind the back and, you know, that's all good. And, you know, hopefully, you know, people will migrate to that scoring, but who knows?
Mm-hmm. Let's change gears a bit. We'll talk about the Premier Lacrosse League. Again, they made a few changes to the field, added a shot clock, but they made it a lot more TV friendly. For the box, or for the field players, sorry. Do you think this is a little more enticing now that they have ESPN and TSN here in Canada to you know, grow their viewership?
You know, Gary, I wish I knew more about the PPL. You know, I see it every once in a while on TV, mm-hmm. and the guys are really talented. The guys that are coming out of college and the guys that are, you know, 10-year pros, they're just so good. You know, you just hope that what we can do at the youth level and getting more kids interested and, you know, getting teams in the South interested, colleges playing, more colleges playing, you know, hopefully it grows.
Right.
You know, this has been going on for, you know, 30, 35 years. And, you know, I think it's definitely grown. I don't know where it's going.
Right. Well, the one thing that Tony Seaman said when we had him on was especially with him being a coach for the Denver Outlaws of the major lacrosse league, was without having home teams, it's like the circus comes to town. He didn't think it was viable as a roving show from town to town to town. Do you think that it has a chance without home teams and just rolling into town with everybody every single week, or do they need to settle down and have towns take ownership of those teams?
That's a good question. I haven't really thought it out. I mean, to me, I think people get enough of lacrosse in the spring, okay, with the colleges playing, and you got to put a sport away, right? You start playing indoor in December, and it goes through April. Then you have the college layover, and then it's becoming a year-round sport. And it's almost like you got to put it away, I think. I think it's saturated. In my opinion, it's not to say it's not a good product, but I mean, to me, you're saturating, sports or, with three different types of lacrosse. And there's women's lacrosse. Now the women's have a pro team, and they're getting sponsors, which means something, but, you're not seeing many people in the stands,
Right. With
it
coming towards the Olympics, with it being going towards the Olympics, what do you think with that? And they're changing that also because it's going to be a 6, so it's almost a box on field to try and make it work for the world, right?
The world teams, the world games are always great. I think those should stay around. Obviously, everybody would want to walk for their country in the Olympics and do that. I don't know. I guess, you have volleyball, and then you have beach volleyball with 2 players,
Right. This goes more towards like the rugby 6s, right? The rugby 7s.
Yeah. I've got 2 in college. I've got 1 in high school playing, and I got a 5th grader. So, I'm going to a lot of their activities and games and so forth. So, I really, can't drill down too much for you on that stuff.
I think I'm beginning to understand why it has to be put away for a little while.
It's a lot.
I'm yanking on your leg a little bit, but I'm also making a point that I think I hear coming from you, which is, maybe when they get to the age where they're self-determined, that's one thing. But when they're relying on people to bring them places, the continuous stuff, it's like a lot of people believe that an athlete should have a sport, but there should be an off season, even if it means playing something else in the off season, kind of like that.
Yeah.
A lot of the old time guys bring that up as well. That they like to play, they like to put it away, and they play basketball. They did hockey. They did different things because they couldn't do it 12 months a year. It just their mindset they burn out too fast.
I think a lot of kids are losing out on it because these schools become so specialized in one sport, and they're out recruiting. That you got a kid that's a 2 or 3 sport athlete, and he's pretty good. If he leaves the football field and he can't even come close to the basketball, making the basketball team in the winter, and then he can't make the lacrosse team, you're missing out on some pretty important time in high school, I believe.
Right.
A lot of these really good teams, the IMGs of the world, or some of these schools that are always at the top at lacrosse or football, it's all too specialized. But guess what? You need to blame the parents. The parents are to blame too. They think their kid's going to be pro. They're going to get a scholarship. you know, and they put all this money and effort, and you know,
Sure.
half of them have never played the sport, or so it's, you know, good and bad.
Right. No, a lot of the old legends had also brought up, you know, even in the sport itself, pigeonholing kids too young to being just defense or just offense or something of that, where they might just burn them that they don't want to play the game because, you know, everybody dreams of scoring lots of goals, but if they're being put there at 6 years old as well, you're going to be the defenseman, and they
I
sit
think
there and lose interest. So we're losing out on a lot of kids enjoying the entire sport, playing the way you guys played back then, both offense and defense.
yeah, methinks Gary is preaching to the choir.
Yeah, I mean, I got a son playing JV football. And he said, "Dad, they think I'm a center." I'm like, "Then you're a center. Go play center. Go learn what it's like to block. You know, if you think you're any good at being a running back, wait till next year. You got plenty of time. You know, be a good teammate. Don't, you know, whatever.
Give it a chance, is what you're saying.
Yep. Yep.
Have some faith.
Now, I want to talk one little bit more about you finished off your career with the Wings, and you got into coaching. How did that come about? That you all of a sudden you're assistant coach with the Wings?
You know, Tony left, and Adam Mueller. Okay, Adam Mueller played with us a couple years, and you know, we always had young coaches, good connecting guys with the program, and he asked myself and Paul Denikin, who had played as well, and you know, we had a lot of fun. We were playing out in Vancouver. It was just fun because I knew a lot of the guys and sort of knew what was working, what wasn't working on defense, and it was a lot of fun. You know, it was a lot of work, but you know, did it for 2 years, and you know, I learned a couple things that Tony Resch taught me. He said, "Plenty, you don't coach 25 of you. Okay, you got to coach everybody different. Not everybody is intense. I was always too intense. That was me. And you got to be able to reach everybody. You got to coach 25 kids, 25 different ways. And I've taken that with me in other sports and talked to other coaches about that. But that's one thing I learned about coaching, a life lesson, that when you want to reach kids and get the most out of them, you got to coach them up all different, and you got to figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are and play into that.
You really have to reach into your experience to do that, don't you?
Yeah. You know, I can't tell anybody about scoring and things like that, but, you know, I can tell you how to pick up a ground ball and how to play defense and how to talk. And that's what my experience has been. I'm not certainly, you know, I kid a lot of the attack players. They have the cleanest jerseys out there, you know.
Right.
The midfielders with the ball taxi. You know, we just got the ball in and out, and, you know. But anyway.
Coaching is a pretty simple thing, really. It's, you know, you don't have to be a scorer. You just have to understand the game to put scorers in a position where they do what they do best. You know, you don't have to go out there and score for them. You know enough about where the good spots are to score from. You might not be able to, you know, you might not be the guy that has the hand talent to score, but you can help them understand where their feet should be, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, you know, you're just teaching the basics. You know, you have 2 or 3 coaches. You know what your strengths are. You try and coach the kids up on the basics. That's me. I'm always about the basics and making sure you do them all the time. You know, I'll let the other coaches coach the offense. But to me, it's just effort, moving your feet, and talking and things like that. You know, basics. And
How
Well,
much of
Learn how to play with each other. Yeah.
how much of playing with Tony Resch and then again having him as your coach, how much of Tony Resch rubbed off on you to be a coach?
I certainly enjoyed it. He rubbed off on me in a sense that you got to be a little bit more cerebral, and you can't use intent. That's where he rubbed off on me the most. And, you know, you can't just be yelling at people and telling them where to go and telling them if they did something wrong. You got to be critiquing, and, you know, you got to get these guys to play for you. So you got to feel like they got to feel like you're on their side.
Right.
And it's a delicate balance. You know, especially when you're a pro, you really can't have feelings, but they all do. So, you know, you got to figure out what's going to light a fire under them. And, you know, they respect the fact that you played, but, you know, everybody's coming from different backgrounds, so it's not easy.
Right. Was it strange when you first started coaching because you weren't that far removed from playing, so a lot of the guys you played with, you're now coaching?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know how much coaching I did. I just, you know, if I saw something wrong, I'd say, hey, that didn't look like it, you know, you didn't get back, you weren't hustling, you know, get your stick up. You know, when you get to that level, there's not a whole lot of coaching. You know, you're just making sure guys are doing the right thing.
Right. So you're still involved with the alumni with the Wings now. Is there a lot of things that are events that you're able to get to?
Yes and no. You know, I'm 56. The kids are always got things going on. I try to. I go to some of the older things where guys are sort of retiring. Larry Miller, who was our longtime doctor, he retired from being a doctor and went to that and saw a lot of guys. You know, it's for me, it's just harder to get out and be in that space. I'm sure I'll change a little bit, but just with having the kids all over the spot, it's hard for me to,
Go ahead, sir. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, life is what life is. So, you know, there are responsibilities that one has. But I assume by what you said that, you know, you try to make as many functions as you can.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, you see a lot of the fans there. When you go, they remember you. You feel good about yourself. You know, you bring back the old times. But I'll tell you what, spent a lot of time on the field over the last, but, you know, from being little, playing 2 sports in college, you know, I don't have a competitive bone left in me. I left it on the field.
Sure.
And, we always tell people, leave it on the field and always win the post game.
Yeah. I think, Chris, what you're talking about as well is that, you know, there's always a chance that there's going to be a little bit of a burnout, especially if you really put in as much as you can, right? You almost need a break from it.
You know, just been fortunate enough to get in my car here, guys.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Been fortunate enough to play with some really good players, all kinds of sports, different teams, and be successful. And, you know, what makes me happy right now is just watching my kids play. I get a lot out of that. And, there's so many hours in the day. I'm in sales. And, unless you're a teacher / coach, you're not around it all the time. You're going to your kids play, watch your kids play. It's just, you got to let it go after a while. Mm-hmm. And I think you get it back. But for me, it's, spent a lot of years grinding it, and they were the best.
Right.
Can I try it a different way, Chris?
Sure.
You're a full-on kind of guy, right? And now that you're taking care of your kids and being a part of your kids' life, you're full on with them now. So, time isn't that, you don't have that much extra time now.
No. And I love being around my kids and watching them do things. And it's a short period of time because we all know that when you have kids, they get to a certain age, and, they're more involved with their friends in their own lives. So, my parents came to every one of my games. Again, the youngest of 5. Every game that I ever had, whether it was a swim meet, a wrestling meet, a lacrosse game, football game, whether it was in Davidson down in North Carolina or, Dartmouth up in New Hampshire. They came over and watched me play in the World Games in England. So, they supported me, and, you're a lot like your parents.
Yeah, and you know how good it felt, right? You know how good it felt to feel the support of your parents. And that's a hard thing to ignore when you become one, right?
Yeah, you try not, one of the biggest things is I coach my daughter in basketball. And I said to them all, I said, and even after talking to Tony, I said, guys, I'm going to treat, girls, I'm going to treat you like the high school boys. I'm not going to treat you any different because, I want the most out of you. And I was coaching up some girls, and on the way home, it's total silence with my daughter. I'm like, yo, what's up? She's like, Dad, you cannot talk to girls like that. Well, I learned pretty quickly what not to say around, to girls.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing, isn't it, that we have to try and treat women equally, and sometimes they rear their head that direction and remind us that they're different.
Oh, that was so funny.
That's life, though. That's life in a nutshell. You learned a very important lesson in life when it comes to, it's a complicated time, buddy. It's really complicated.
Yeah. I try and go through with a smile. I've been very fortunate over the years. I have an awesome family, an awesome wife, and they support me. And, we have ups and downs just like everybody else, but, I've luckily found, Gabe's and I got married the same year, got engaged on the same weekend. Scott Gabrielson, we're celebrating our 25th wedding anniversaries this year. So I know he just celebrated his. I'm celebrating mine in October. And, we just got great wives, and we're lucky, So I thank the big guy upstairs all the time.
Right.
Absolutely.
Do you keep in contact with a lot of the former Wings? And you're talking about Scott Gabrielson, but any of the other ones? Do you get a chance to keep in touch?
I wish I talked to some of them a little bit more. I do. A lot of the guys, the American guys that are grew up around here, are still here. The Gary Martins, the Tony Rushes, the John McAvoys, Brian Doherty's of the world, Brian Volkers. We always see each other around here, but a lot of the guys that, Chris Bates, they're all coaches in the PLA and high school around here. And but I think that's not the norm, just because I work for a bank. So I'm in the mortgage business, so I don't see those guys as much. But you know, anyway.
We only have a few minutes left. Do you have any for the up and coming player who wants to make it, wants to go through it, any advice on how to persevere through everything?
You're asking, do I have any advice for
the up and coming player
at the next level, or?
Yep. Just to get to the next level.
Making it a career. Make it a career. How do you make it a career? How do you recommend them making it a career? Sorry, Gary.
That's a good question. I don't know whether it should be a career. I mean, I don't know how much you can make in a year. The way lacrosse is played, it's pretty brutal on your body.
Mm-hmm.
But, you got to be married to the weight room, staying in shape, eating healthy, doing all the right things off the field. It's a sacrifice, and you got to be ready to sacrifice. Just like these kids that are going to college. When you say, I want to go play Division I football, I want to go play Division I lacrosse for men's, for women, guess what? They own you 7 days a week. 7 days a week, maybe 6 days. A big part of the year. Can you do that? That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And, playing a sport, listen, if we were all 6'5", run 4.4s, we're really good athletically, playing football, holy smokes. Those guys make a ton of money. They can retire. I don't think anybody can retire on a lacrosse income.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess what you're saying is make sure it's what you want, and how much of it do you want?
And make sure you get your academics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think that, there's guys out there, I know who Paul Rabel is, and I think he's, from what people say, doing a great job. And, but there's few guys in the lacrosse community that can make, those types of be financially well off. So I just talk, you asked me the question, and I'm talking about my experience.
Sure.
I got, you're playing lacrosse since the 6th grade or whatever, it becomes, that's a lot of lacrosse. It's time to put it down.
Sure.
But, to each your own, and, there's a lot of guys out there that can do it. But, I'm still stuck in the 90s, I think. 1990s.
I say I didn't think you were that old. Stuck in the 90s.
Yeah.
It feels like it though sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah. It does. I don't know why. I think there's a lot of me out there, meaning I'd rather give an assist out. There's so many people worried about how many goals they're scoring and doing this and doing that. Just be a good team and make your teammate look good and do what you have to do for the team.
That's great. I think that's a great way to end this. We're out of time. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate this, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Really, really appreciate your time.
Yep. Thank you both very much for letting me talk. Probably too much and not making a whole lot of sense, but I appreciate it. I'm listening to your shows.
I disagree. You made a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
You brought us a different perspective. That's the beauty of humanity, right? We all derive a different interpretation of our experiences, and we get what we get out of them. And just because yours aren't exactly as anyone else's, Chris, it doesn't matter. The point is, we came here to share your experience, understand how you feel about lacrosse, and you opened our eyes to a couple of things. I appreciate that.
Have me back in 20 years.
You know
You
what? If
will.
since I won't be here, Gary will make sure that happens.
You better believe it.
Talk to you later, buddy.
Thanks very much, Chris. Take care.
You know.
All right, Gary, that was awesome. Thank you for that.
My pleasure. Again, it's always a great time when we're talking lacrosse.
For Gary Groob and Chris Flynn, former Philadelphia Wing, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk. Seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For NLL Lacrosse Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out our SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks again, everybody. See you next Thursday.